State your patience. Oh, you're good. I'm good. Okay, good evening. We have our new sound system. This is the first time we are officially testing it. So hopefully everyone in the back can hear okay. It's like surround sound. Um, I'm calling us to order at 7:05. And if everyone wouldn't mind standing for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we appoint a moderator tonight, I just want to give a couple of kudos and thank yous to some people. I want to thank Jen for taking a crash course this afternoon in how to do this with the new system. I also want to thank our Park and Rec Commission. They have worked tirelessly and very hard over the past umpteen months. And I'm going to actually use a baseball analogy here for this. You pretty much stepped up to the plate and knocked it out of the park with the Bethany Hoops program. It was a phenomenal program, and we had very exciting season. I don't know if any of you follow it. We had one girls team, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we had one girls team who played in the Orange Rec League, and they took home the championship in a double overtime with a whopping score of 13-11. So, and then our boys had a double elimination championship, and it went down to a buzzer beater shot on Tuesday night with a score of 29-28, I believe it was. So it was exciting, and I want to thank the coaches, the players, the parents, the commission. It was what we needed. It was so positive and so much wonderful energy. And I think when the girls played in Orange, I think 2/3 of the gym was actually Bethany people. So that tells you about the support that they had, and it was fantastic. So thank you again to everyone who participated. But now we do need to appoint a moderator. Carol Goldberg is usually our go-to person, but she is at a play tonight. So I have asked, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Steve Thornquist, who has done it before for us. And if no one is objecting, I could have a second to that. Okay, thank you. Any other possible nominations for moderator tonight? I know everybody's chomping at the bit to do it. Okay, hearing none, all in favor of Steve Thornquist as our moderator for tonight's meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Steve, the floor is yours.
So this is a special meeting, and we are going to be discussing an item that's going to go to referendum. So there won't be a vote held tonight, and I want everyone to keep that in mind. It's more of an information sharing session and ability to get questions answered if there are any. And so we're going to start with, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to start with a presentation by the town to just get an orientation of where we are and what this is about. You've all read the call, so you know it's about the Park and Rec going forward with an unlicensed program. And so you're going to hear their presentation on that. And then we'll take questions. I will like to state that we're going to limit comments from the floor to 3 minutes. So keep that in mind when you make your comments. And I will call on people who haven't spoken before people who've already spoken. So don't feel that I'm ignoring you. I will keep track of who's next and who's going to go. But if someone has raised their hand and you've already spoken, I will probably call on them first. And then if you are going to make a comment, please state your name and your address in the town so that when you speak, we have, for the recordings and the transcription, we have a record of who spoke. And with that, I'm going to ask, who's going to be giving the presentation for the town?
The group.
The group, all right. I was wondering what the migration was about. All right, so I'm going to have you come forward, and then we will begin the public session, okay?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Galick. I am the chair of the newly established Park and Rec Commission. I am joined this evening by other members of the commission, Dave Pecoraro, Jamie Guthrie, Emily Meredithstein, and Patricia, who goes by Pat Ryan. One of our members is not here this evening. He's actually out of state, but otherwise Craig Bahoon, whose name I can never say correctly, would have joined us as well. So we wanted to share some information in collaboration with the town this evening. So up on the screen, you'll see just kind of the purpose for the presentation that we're sharing with you tonight. Our aim is to try to answer some frequently asked questions and some common misperceptions that have been kind of out in the community tonight. Want to click? Okay, so I suspect that all of you know that there was a petition that was circulated in town. It was signed by not quite 100 members. I don't have an exact number, but I want to say it was something like 90-ish because there was a sheet that was turned in late. The original petition question is up here on the screen. I will be very frank in saying that I was the one who started circulating this petition, and it was as a result of the Board of Selectmen meeting, I believe on March 3rd, in which the Board of Selectmen decided to prohibit Park and Rec and the new commission and the new department in running a before and after childcare program. So as a result, we circulated this petition in the hopes of establishing a special meeting such as this one this evening where townspeople could come to vote, as we did the last time that there was a petition circulated regarding Park and Rec. The Board of Selectmen at a subsequent meeting voted to add this footnote to the special meeting notice that they established and sent out. So that is up there. Then in another meeting, I think it might have been March 13th, but there have been a number of them. They decided that instead of allowing voting at a special meeting like the one that we're at tonight, that they would take it to referendum. The stated reason was that they wanted kind of as unlimited access as potentially possible for town members to have the ability to come out to vote. So that this meeting might potentially be limiting because you might be at work, you might not be able to get childcare, which is an irony, to come to these meetings to vote. So by having the polls open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., more people would be able to come. So they did also decide, as is their right, to change the question. So the quote on the bottom is how the question now reads, and that is the question that we will be voting at referendum on April 7th. So, does anybody else want to tag team? You want to go? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the licensing piece.
I did not write this slide, but I have deep, intimate knowledge of the Office of Early Childhood and the licensing process, so I can talk about it. This slide just explains what the Office of Early Childhood does in licensing childcare programs. It has a high standard of health and safety, high standards of building facilities, high standards of ratio of adults to children. These are the 4 different types of licensures that childcare programs can seek. We have been seeking out and figuring out what the next steps would be to get a Parks and Rec program licensed. As you saw in a previous slide, municipalities running childcare programs are not required to seek licensure at all. There has been pending legislation in Connecticut to see whether that would become a requirement, but it has not passed. It might not. And there are no as far as we know, there are not municipalities in Connecticut who have chosen to license their programs, but we have been told by licensing that municipalities can do that even if it's not required. And the one other thing, I think this is on a later slide, but I did want to mention, youth camps are a whole separate aspect of licensing, a separate set of regulations and standards. If Parks and Rec were ever to run a camp, that would be the type of licensure we would have to seek. But the before and after care program, at first it seems like it might fall under youth camps, but it actually, I believe, and we have to figure that out if we are ever going to move forward with a before and after school program, and explore licensure for it. I believe it actually falls under childcare program, which is the licensing that I've worked with for 10 years. And the new Parks and Rec director is also familiar with a school-age child, I forget the word that they use, like an addendum to the licensing. So those are the basic types of, and this is a list of 3 different types of unlicensed childcare programs that exist in the state. Yeah.
So just, there are 2 handouts up here for anybody who is interested. One shows all of the licensed childcare centers and that are currently licensed under the OEC. The other are all of the ones that are technically exempt. So just for kind of comparison, programs that are not required to be exempt are Boys and Girl Scouts, YMCA programming, all of those do not have to be licensed. Extended school year services, because that's a municipal program run by a school, not required to be licensed. And there are currently 40 towns that we have heard back from that run before and after childcare programming, similar to the program that we are proposing to run here in town, none of which are currently licensed. There is not one single town in the entire state of Connecticut who has a park and rec program that has sought out licensing, because they are not required by law to do that. However, that does not mean that those programs can't be run with high quality and high standards. This just shows the key differences between what happens if you are licensed and what happens when you are exempt from licensing. So the primary difference is that when you are a licensed program, the OEC can show up at any point. They typically come, I think it's 4 times a year, once a year? Okay, so at least once per year, they just show up and walk through and make sure you're doing the things correctly, but often come more than that. You have to have CPR and first aid training, you have oversight by them, and there is a formal complaint process. And then the opposite side kind of lists the differences. And if there's a complaint, they come as well too, which makes sense.
All right. I'm going to do this because I'm over at the computer too. So I was kind of asked just to put something together of what the town has been doing through some of this. Please keep in mind that until recently, we didn't have a department. We didn't have a director. We weren't sure what was going to be happening within Parks and Rec. So we wouldn't be seeking out licensure if we didn't have a director or anything to run. So all of this is new information that we've been working on since we knew that we were going to be able to hire a director. So what we're doing is, and Emily knows better than I talked to someone from OEC in the last week, also this morning. They had said that with our after school, the way it is with municipality, that we could run it under a youth camp license, and then that would also cover us for the summer camp as well if we wanted to do that. There may be an addendum onto that I'm not aware of yet, but they did say that you could do that. And then basically what we've done is we've submitted a request already to QVHD. What we were told by OEC is, because currently we do not have to be licensed, the requirement is that a fire marshal needs to come and make sure that it's secure, and QVHD needs to come and make sure that there's a health and safety, obviously, requirement to it. We've already put in a request at QVHD. Obviously, we're doing some repairs to the annex. We're not going to have them come until all the repairs are done, but we did go through what would be in the license for OEC to make sure that all of our spaces are amendable when they do come for QVHD for them to pass. The fire safety inspector he's already been through, the fire marshal's already been through. For external, we're beginning to set expectations of how we're communicating to the community. How are we communicating to parents? What is that going to be looking like? Obviously, our director is going to be starting on April 7th. We will know more at that time of how those programs are going to be run and when that's going to be rolling out, but that's obviously for external. For internal, obviously, we're going to be continuing to work on establishing those policies and procedures and trainings. They are going to be coinciding with what a licensure would be. So anything that you would need in order to get a license, we are going to be doing anyway. Requiring professional development for the director. In the past, there has not been professional development. It was kind of, if you wanted to do it, please go and do that. Going forward, there will be annual requirements to maintain and keep your credentials going. Whether or not it's a certification or not, you still need to go and have certain classes that would keep you up to date on some of the new legislation and regulations. Along with, we have an amazing commission, which we have not had in the past, who's very committed to make sure that those things are happening. We also need to create and maintain a record system that supports compliance, making sure that all of those health requirements, making sure our students' information, or sorry, the students' information and our children's information is kept safe, making sure that any kind of filing that we have is underneath retention schedules that we have. So if we ever get audited, which we do, we can provide all of that without any issue. Providing guidelines for what an internal audit would look like. So regardless if we're going to be licensed or not, we're putting into place, whether facilities, it's in the selectman's office, it falls under HR. We're working on that right now on how, on an annual basis, how are we going to keep the checks and balances for the director? One of the questions I've gotten several phone calls in the last couple of days. One of the questions I got from a community member, which is valid, is you had a director before and you thought everything was fine. What makes this different? What makes it different is that we're going to make sure that every year we're going through and it's like, okay, I need all the signatures, I need all the trainings, I need to see this. And it's going to get marked off and filed along with any of the other audit material that's going to be coming through. Along with, once again, we have a commission that's going to be working directly with the director if anything comes down to make sure that we're being compliant. Again, that kind of falls with the health protocols and records. And then again, we have that Park and Rec Commission that I'm going to keep saying it. We didn't have it before. We had a director that didn't have any guidance, who was on their own down there. And now there is a full board of people willing to research and analyze and make sure that the department's running the way it is, along with that internal check, either, like I said, either through HR or the selectman's office to make sure that those things are being done. Are we still filing for a license? Yes, we're still filing for a license. That's going to happen. The conversation I had with OEC this morning, even because I've had different people, and when you talk to different people, you kind of get a little bit of a different story. But basically what I'm being told is, yes, you absolutely can get licensed. You're not really a priority. So depending on how many applications come in, depending on, and summer gets a little busier and things like that, but depending on how many applications come in, we will get to you. We can't give you a timeline on what that looks like. So we are doing that regardless.
Okay, so a little just bit about what we are committed to doing. So as I hope is very clear, you have a very, very committed commission. We have met more since we started in September than the prior commission met during their entire tenure over the last several years. And that is because we are literally building from the ground up to repair things and get things in place. You also have a commission that has experience and expertise in all of the areas across the board: childcare, licensing, health and safety, police, social work, like across the board. We have people who have those different experiences. So the commission is committed to ensuring that we have clear policies and procedures, and that those policies and procedures are vetted by the town's attorney to make sure that we are in compliance with those things before programming is run. We are committed to ensuring that anybody that is hired and is working with children have been background checked, fingerprinted, completed DCF mandated reporter training, and the youth protection training. Those are things that were not done before, which is, I know, mind-boggling. And those were things that were all in place prior to Bethany Hoops running. So anybody who was going to be working with children was required to go through all of those steps. We are also committed to ensuring, whether we are licensed or not, to maintaining the recommended staff to student ratio established by the OEC. We actually have our plan for both summer camp and for before and after care, if we're able to go that route, actually has additional staff on top of that to make sure that we are within ratio at all times and in all spaces. So that means if 15 kids head out to the soccer field to play soccer, the appropriate number of staff transfer with them, because you need to have the correct number of staff in the correct locations at all times as well. Of course, we want the building to be safe and follow pass any inspections. We are actively pursuing licensing, so we have started the process with asking questions, collecting information. Once the new director starts on April 7th, that is one of her absolute first top priorities. We have already met with her to discuss that. The other huge commitment, and this I think is a giant misconception, is that with the exception of the director's salary, that all other programming is self-sustaining and comes at no cost to anyone in town. I do not expect anybody in this room to pay for my children to go to an aftercare program, nor should I. I decided to bear those children. They are literally my burden every day. So that is a huge, huge, huge commitment. When we put together our budget this year with the finance director, we looked at the cost for all salaried positions that it would take to run that program. So I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but let's say we need 25 counselors for summer camp. We took those 25 counselor salaries plus lifeguards at the beach, because if we go to the beach on Fridays, we need to cover their salaries. Any costs at all, we divided that number by the number of anticipated children, and then we added on a little bit more, because you always know you got to go a little higher, right? To cover the cost for summer camp. That was how we came up with it, so that there is no cost to town people. The other thing is that for the first time ever for hoops, everybody actually paid. That never happened before, which again, I know is shocking. So we also have a check and balance system in place by using MyRec, where there is an electronic record of what you owe and when you pay it. Everything will have to be prepaid. That's a policy that we already wrote and that we have been following. So if everybody actually pays and our budget is established correctly, there is no cost aside from the director's salary to anybody in town. We have gotten some questions about, but there are buildings that have to be maintained. Yes, that is true. There are buildings that have to be maintained. The Park and Rec building will have to be maintained, but the Park and Rec building will have to be maintained whether it's a Park and Rec building or a senior center, or the town decides to open a restaurant in it. That will always have to be paid for. So that cost is not factored in. However, we have lots of ideas for revenue generating potential. And so at some point, our sincere hope, sooner than later, is that we are a revenue generating department, and perhaps we can put some money back into the town as well. That was something that we were very clear about when we were looking at outsourcing summer camp. And there was a $15,000 profit that the one company that gave us a potential bid for outsourcing summer camp was going to make a $15,000 profit using our pay schedule. So that $15,000 can go back into our town budget. That's it. That's all I got. And that was only for 50 children.
So there's 100, so double that.
I just want to make one comment regarding payment, because I have been, some parents have talked to me and said, well, wait a minute, as a result of this, are the costs going up? And the other thing that I think is an important point to bring up, we were able to maintain the same costs from last year's summer camp, from the before and after school program, just because we'd be actually collecting revenue. So that was another big topic, because there were parents concerned about that. Hey, how much are the programs going to go up? So by maintaining, just essentially recovering the income that is due to us, we can actually maintain those programs at no cost to the town. So just one more side note.
All right, so that is the presentation that we promised you. And now the floor is open for questions, comments, whatever you want. It's an open meeting. Does anyone have anything they want to say or ask about? This could be a very short meeting, which would not bother me in any way, shape, or form. You're clear on the concept of what the proposal is? Yes. All right.
It's for the minutes.
Hi, I'm Emily Meredith Stein. I live at 329 Downs Road. I'm part of the commission. I was part of that presentation. Right now, I'm just asking a question as a citizen. I think what I'm perfectly clear and willing to answer more questions about the commission's discussions about this and plans and thoughts for the future of Parks and Rec. But I, in my deciding to vote, needed to ask this question because of the way that the question is worded. And the Board of Selectmen, I changed the wording a little bit, and I do, after attending one meeting and watching the second one, I do understand why they did that. But what I'm unclear on now is if the answer to this question ends up being yes, yes, the town should authorize Parks and Recreation to pursue an unlicensed and unregulated, as those were the words that the Board of Selectmen added, program. Is that then a requirement? And if the answer becomes no, the town votes no, it feels like there's no way for Parks and Rec to run a program, and it must be outsourced, because that's what the original vote of the Board of Selectmen was that started this conversation. So my question, I guess, to either the Board of Selectmen, or I'm just looking for clarity on what happens if the answer is yes and the answer is no. What's that?
I'll defer to him if I need to. My hope is that it's going to pass, because historically, we have not been licensed, as we have seen by your presentation. It's not a requirement. We are exempt, but also you did note that we are going to run it with the standards of a licensed program. So the wording, I think, was put in, I was kind of, anybody that was at those meetings know I was outnumbered for most of those votes. So I'm, because I thought we should be voting tonight, but whatever. I think the phrase was put in only because of the note that was put on the notice that was sent out for tonight's meeting. But my understanding is that note cannot be placed on the actual ballot. So it was, I'm thinking it was incorporated into the question for clarification, because it could not be listed separately as it was on the notice for tonight, because the ballot cannot be separated like that. So I want to thank the commission for an outstanding presentation. I think that did clear a lot of information up. But like I said, I'm hoping that it's going to pass and we can move on. And because I know the director is eager to be running all of our programs. And I know I'm voting yes, so I guess Bob wants to.
Emily,
all right,
did the question get answered?
Oh, I'm
I don't think the question got
Oh,
answered.
so I guess he's
yeah, I was
going
going to call on Vin to do it, but if you'd rather
Okay,
do it.
well, then he can come up too.
If you have
Yeah,
the answer.
I'm here to try to answer the question. I want to follow up with what Paula said, basically agreeing with her. The language that got into there, really, the Board of Selectmen just wanted the note that's in the town meeting call to be in there. So you had the question and the note. That wasn't allowed by state law. So then it has to be a question. So we said, well, just put it in parentheses before the question mark. That wasn't acceptable to the town attorney. So the whole reason for that being in here was not to change the meaning of the question, was just to provide the information. So my interpretation is if it passes, it does not require them to run an unlicensed. It's just trying to provide the information to voters that per state law, you're not required to. So hopefully we didn't inadvertently.
I think that's the key thing. Actually,
Yeah.
could you reiterate that? Because I think I
I
said.
just wanted to talk to the intent, where the whole intent was to try to get the information in the note into the question.
So people who are leaning, like myself, who are leaning towards having a licensed program might read that question and think they should vote no, because that wording is there, because the question became more about the licensure. And so I think that did answer my question. I hope it did for other people. But so people who feel like the town should run a licensed program don't have a clear yes or no. But it feels like the only way that that could happen is to vote yes, even though it says unlicensed, but then we could pursue license, right? That's what you were.
So can I'm going to ask Vin, because it's not clear to me and I'm moderating this and I want to make sure it's clear to you. But to summarize what we've been told, as I understand it, the call for this meeting mentions a referendum asking for an approval of a childcare program before and after school. with a note about it being unlicensed. You can't have a ballot question that has notes attached. It has to be a self-contained question. So they made a self-contained question out of those two statements. So I think that this is within the permit and the purview of the call to the meeting, which is for childcare pre and post school, which may be unlicensed. The question of what happens if this is passed versus, or what is required if this is passed versus what happens if it is not passed, what the ramifications of voting no on it are, I think have not yet been fully demonstrated. And I'm going to ask Vin to answer those questions.
So, I'm Vince Moreno, the town attorney. So when the petition came forward, the petition basically asked a simple question. Should the town direct its park and rec department to run a before and after school program, period. The licensing or unlicensing was not part of the question. The selectmen had a concern that, most of us don't know that this is an unlicensed, an unregulated program. And there'd be no reason for anyone to know, like when I was younger, I dropped my children off at KinderCare, right? Well, that was a privately, commercially run program. And I never looked into it. I assumed that it was doing whatever it was required to do. Here, when you dropped your children off, I'm sure the first thing you didn't ask is, well, is this a licensed program or an unlicensed program? You simply dropped your children off. And the selectmen, particularly because of past events, wanted to make sure that the voters knew that this was an unlicensed program. But because the law is so deliberate in how you must present the question on the ballot, you're not allowed to say anything that might persuade a voter to vote yes or vote no. So we have to keep the content very neutral. And if there was a concern that I raised is, well, if I simply say anything in a parenthetical is explanatory, and you're not allowed to put explanatory language on the ballot. You have to explain it outside the polling place. And some may argue, well, if I say, should the town put an unlicensed program together, that might be persuasive to a voter. Why would I want my children to go to something that's unlicensed when most of us probably did not know that there was no requirement for us to be licensed? So I think you did a great job in explaining the process, and I thank you for that. If you vote yes, really what you're saying is what the original petition question asked. Should the town run a before and after school program as it has historically done? That does not prohibit the town. So if the answer is yes, the town then can put a program together. That doesn't prohibit the town from doing something more, I'll say, robust or put more requirements than what the voters have passed. So if you vote no, then there's no program, right? Because the town would have to go through a licensing process in the first instance and get approval to have such a licensed program. So in order to get a program up and going, the town would, assuming the answer is yes, then the town would institute a program. And as has been explained, go through a licensing process that is subject to a timeline that's outside of the town's control, right? Because we're not the issuing authority. So, but the fact that the answer is yes doesn't prohibit the town from doing something more than what has been required. So for those who might say, well, I should vote no because I want it to be licensed. If you vote no, then you're unlikely to have a program in the foreseeable future. Oh, what's that? Well, there will not be a program that's unlicensed. Well, I don't know that. I don't know that. There'll be no program as of immediate. Right. But that. Well, that's not what it says. It says it shall not be an unlicensed program. So you could go through it. The town, if it says no, then there's no program immediately. All right. But that would not prohibit the town from going through a process. Okay? They would not prohibit the town from going through a process. It means that it would have to go through that process and get the license first. And that could be 6, 12 months, right? So if you vote yes, what you're saying is we want a program, and then what the town has now represented through its Park and Rec Department commission, that it's going through the licensing process. So ultimately, the decision on whether or not the town is licensed is going to be by the regulatory authority, which is a state agency. All right. So that is what will determine whether or not the town is licensed. Okay. And that's it. So a vote yes says you'll have a program immediately and does not prohibit the licensing. Okay. Is that clear? What?
So if I can summarize.
Please.
Let me just try to summarize this, because I think I've got this, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
If you vote yes, then the town can proceed with an unlicensed program because you're allowing them to do that, which if they are not bound to, or they're not prohibited from getting it licensed in due time. If you vote no, then the town, if it's going to proceed with a program, must seek and obtain licensure first, because that's already been decided. So it's a matter of timing and time frame. If the state approves it in 3 weeks, you're golden. If the state approves it in 3 years, then you have a problem. And that's where it hinges. So if you vote yes, you will have an unlicensed program. And apparently, legally, that means we can still also proceed with licensing that program in due time. If you vote no, what this says is you are not allowing, by voting this down, you are not allowing an unlicensed program. It doesn't mean you will have no program. It just has to be licensed first. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Because you can't put explanatory material on the ballot, it's considered prejudicial.
Right.
So the question has to be the crux of the matter. And then that's what meetings like this and mailings and things like that are all about, is to explain it. It gets worse. My daughter rather lives in California. They have 90 referenda on the ballot, 3 of which all have the same title. So you get really confusing stuff on there and you have to pay attention, but you also get a booklet in the mail to explain them. Let's not go there either. All right, so I'm going to go in order because do you want to moderate?
No, I don't. She's been having a hand up.
No, I know. She, and then you. Go. So it's going to probably be the same process no matter how you vote if you're going to get licensed. You can either go externally and hire someone who has a license to run it for you, or the Parks and Rec Commission, through the selectman, through the director, will seek that licensure and be directed to do so. I don't think that you have a board of selectmen or a town that doesn't want the program. I think what you have is...
Can we just explain something a little bit more? Just explaining something a little bit more, because the expense of what a licensed program might look like might be different. It would ultimately come back to a town meeting because it would be dealt with through the budget process, right? Because I don't know what the difference between the expense of an unlicensed and a licensed program is. So that's going to go through your Board of Finance. It's going to go through your Board of Selectmen, back to a town meeting through a budget process. So ultimately, I would say it would come back to the town meeting through finances because there's going to have to be presentation and approval.
But in point of fact, your finances will have to be approved by the town anyway, because anything that the budgets all have to be rectified and reconciliated. I guess the point being that nothing in this, one way or the other, would prevent the development of a child care program. It's just whether it's required to be licensed before it starts or not. And you're next. But we've heard from the board, so I do want to have these people talk too.
I'm so sorry. I just got feedback from people who are doing the live stream and they can't hear the questions because it's not through the mic.
Okay, so but it has to be far from this one. There you go. Now it's far enough away not to give us the feedback.
Who had their
We had some, yeah, let's get the non-park and rec people first, because you've already had a chance to speak. I'll get you up there.
Feedback here. Hi,
Perfect, yeah.
I'm Kathy Ellison. I live on Route 42 in Bethany. I just have a question overall with the data that was collected and provided on these forms here. It seems like the other towns that have a before and after school program that is exempt, the majority of them, if not all of them, fall under the Board of Ed. It looks like these are all BOE, Board of Ed, Hamden, Board of Ed, Clinton, Groton, Board of Ed. Why in Bethany are we proposing something under the Park and Rec? And if it's just me not understanding, is the Park and Rec under the Board of Ed?
Statutorily, there's no difference. Statutorily, there's no difference. This is now off. The statute exempts Board of Ed run and municipally run. So there's no difference with respect to the exemption. I know. No, it would continue under the town through its department, Park and Rec Commission. Not necessarily.
Just wanted, I pulled these. So this came directly from the OEC. And so the first packet, the thicker one, is all of the ones that are licensed. And it does show that right now there's no towns that do it. The second one is those, and this is what they told me this morning, those towns that actually filed the license for exemption, which most towns do not, are on that list. And if you look at Board of Ed, some of those are for just programs in general. They're not necessarily after school. They're not whatever. They're any program. So you got to look at the titles that go along with them. And a lot of them do enrichment camps and things like that in the summer. And so all of that has to be licensed. But they're exempt because they follow protocol from the state. So they can be exempt. I don't know the criteria for the school. You might have more criteria for the school.
They may not be listed there because they haven't applied for exemption.
Correct.
But they are exempt. There are 40 towns.
I think you were next. Right?
Okay, so let's try to keep it like speaking to the audience, not to each other, because it's not fair for the people recording and it's not fair for the people who aren't involved in those discussions. And we need to be able to, all of us, hear what you're saying. So.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you, Don, for a new system.
Name and address.
Sounds a lot better than the past ones. It's great to have
Name
the
and
town
address.
have a working system we can all hear. And also thank you to the Park and Rec group that's done tremendous job. You all have really done great work building a program. I have one kind of clarification and one
Jamie
question.
Sterling, 12
I'm
Miller
sorry.
Road. Go ahead.
Jamie Sterling, 20 Miller Road. Thank you. I heard you say that in the proposal for next year's budget, there's only the director's salary. In the previous year's budget, or it might have been the year before, because last year was so mixed up, there was the director's salary and the assistant director's salary. Does this mean that the line item that used to be about $165,000 that was subsidized, the difference between the cost of Park and Rec and the money that was brought in, is now reduced to just the director's salary? That's the first question. And you can just answer it if that's a yes. So that would mean that the line item, the subsidy, is being cut from 165,000 to something less. And we have the chair of the finance board here, and
She's going to need the microphone because they're trying to get it recorded.
You want the numbers?
No, I actually don't want the numbers.
You got it.
Because there are concepts here. Part of what is happening in your Park and Rec program does not include programs for children, because your Park and Rec department also is managing facilities in town. They would be managing Vets Park anyway, even if there was no camp there and so on. And there are administrative costs beyond that salary. And as I understand it, what they've represented is that every single program will pay for itself. That doesn't mean that the total doesn't include some other costs. I want to mention something else though, because if there's a no vote on this and you decide that you want to pursue licensing anyway in order to get a program, somehow or other, the day before the referendum, you're going to have to tell the budget hearing how much money you want, because the budget hearing is the day before the referendum. You're not going to have any money to work with, or else you're going to have all that money. Some decisions are going to have to be made. Just letting everybody know that you're not going to automatically have money there to pursue your licensing, because nothing will be paying for it.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me.
At the risk of my 3 minutes, the second question I had for the commission, you said that 40 towns are running a park and rec program. That's fabulous. That's about a quarter of the towns in the state of Connecticut. Can you tell me the towns that surround us, Orange, Woodbridge, Seymour, Prospect, Beacon Falls, Hamden, are those towns running a park and rec program, or do they farm that privately?
So I don't have the list in front of me. We heard from 40. So the commission has joined the Connecticut Rec and Park Association for the state. So for the first time ever, we are able to easily contact other park and rec departments across the state, their directors, share resources, licensing things, et cetera. So we heard back from 40 so far. Again, I can't tell you off the top of my head all of the ones around us, but like Southbury was one that they're regional. Brookfield, would you say Brooklyn, Madison, Easton, Reading?
More smaller towns that meet this demographic.
Right. It's often smaller towns. So I believe Woodbridge has one that's run through their school system, and it is staffed by, I don't know if the gentleman is a teacher. I ran into a mom the other night at a meeting who told me Orange uses an outsourced company called 21st Century. A lot of places use the YMCA. I work in Watertown. We use the YMCA. So oftentimes towns will sometimes subcontract out if that's not something that their park and rec department is able to handle on a before and after school scale. Usually it's because they don't have a facility too. We are lucky that we also have a building. You're welcome. And we can publish the names of the towns that we have.
Okay, this gentleman here in the blue shirt, you had wanted to speak?
Alex Hutchinson, 76 Luke Hill Road. Thank you to the commission. Great presentation. My question is, incredible information up there that is going to be important for anybody who wants to vote on this. Is the presentation going to be posted with a notice on the website? So anybody who goes in, wants to know about the referendum, all that information will be there?
What I can do is I can put it as a banner on our website, and it's also on our Bethany, it's the Bethany Town Clerks. This is all being live streamed on YouTube. So you can find it there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so it will be on the town website, is what you're saying? Okay, I mean, it just needs to be somewhere where people can reference, is what he's saying. Okay, so you had wanted to speak. Yeah, and I have you.
David Pecoraro, 28 Briar Road. So I just want to be clear, there was a little bit back and forth as far as if a vote no, we're automatically going to pursue licensing. That wasn't any of the discussion with the Board of Selectmen. Quite honestly, Selectmen 2 and 3 didn't seem to want a park and rec program running the before and after care program, period. Licensing was an after fact. So to say that we're automatically, because that seems to be the impression that's being given, is that we're automatically going to start a licensure process is invalid. That's just not accurate, because that was not the discussions that were made. So basically what we're voting on is, do you want a park and rec program? Yes or no, period. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. At some point, I guess if somebody brings another question and brings it to a town meeting for a licensed program, then we would go through this again. But as it is now, that's what you're voting. I just want that to be clear, because that doesn't seem clear from what's being stated, and that was not what the discussions were.
Okay, that gentleman in the sweatshirt. Nope, right in front of you. Nope, to your right there. To your right, to your right, to your right, that gentleman.
You're not a sweatshirt.
No, I don't have a sweatshirt.
T-shirt,
And-
sorry. That guy in the T-shirt, him, right there.
You
No.
wanted to do
yeah.
it? Okay, not a switch.
Sean Warner, 899 Litchfield Turnpike. Everything that was said by Vinny and the yes or no, for the people that are not here and they don't want to go through the whole YouTube video and actually listen to everything, is that going to be actually bulleted to actually tell other people yes means this, no means this, so on and so forth. Otherwise, as Dave just pointed out, go back to the original question. That was the petition question, no extra. Otherwise, if they want information, watch the video, come to the meetings, and be a part of this.
So he's saying we can't because the selectmen, go ahead.
So there's a statute that provides for the authorization of explanatory text. What you're just asking for would fall within the explanatory text statute. In order to do that, we would have needed an affirmative vote from the Board of Selectmen. And so we don't have that authority to do that. It would be ideal to be able to, I would say we don't have the ability to do that because there was no authority granted. There's a process for explanatory text. It would have to come through the town clerk, authorized by the Board of Selectmen. So the only thing that voters can do, constituents can do, is go back and watch this video, which can be posted on the website with the presentation. But we cannot.
What about a mailing? What about a mailing?
Again,
You need to tell the people the way that yes or no, just the way that you're explaining to us right now.
I understand, but if I can only do what I'm authorized to do.
The town can only do what is authorized to do. Individuals.
Go back to the original question.
You cannot do that because it won't work on a ballot. He said.
No,
that
the
already.
original question without the explanatory.
Oh, well, I see. Shall the town establish an operator before and after school, regardless of whether it's
Period.
licensed or not?
Period. Otherwise, you're going to have to tell every, what was it, 2,400 people or 5,000, I'm sorry, exactly what was said tonight. How is that going to be possible before a referendum? This is why the last petition, we voted in the town meeting. You got all your questions out and then you were able to vote. Not in a referendum where you can't ask any questions. For the people who don't know and they just go up and they look at a question, you don't know.
So. It's
No,
not a
and I apologize if somebody wants to correct me. This question is not for you. This question is for them.
No, I understand that. I understand.
You're
that.
just moderating.
Right. And that's the point I was about to make is I'm just moderating this. But what you are saying, from what I'm hearing is you want this yes means this, no means that. He's already said the town cannot officially do that.
Then take it out of the question. Go back to the original petition question.
That was not how they select that. This is what they voted on passing.
Petition act.
I know, but this is what the referendum they voted on says. Now, I would, as moderator and as a concerned citizen, suggest that those people who are here who have a grasp of what this means, I would publicize this on Facebook. There are 3 town sites. I would publicize this. I would even write a letter to local papers, whatever. Get that message out so that voters are educated. Though
I'm still waiting for them to answer. With all due respect.
that's fair, but I'm going to ask Paula. But keep it quick.
I know. Sean, to be honest with you, I wanted to vote tonight. Pretty much every vote I've had lately, I've been outnumbered. And I've tried to move this forward. This should have been done months ago. We shouldn't have had a petition to bring this question forward. If I said that correctly. It's, and I brought this up at a selectmen's meeting. The petition that came back in January cost the town $1,700 and change. This meeting tonight is going to cost approximately the same. And we could have voted tonight. Now you're going to have a referendum on the 7th, which the polls are going to be open for 14 hours. The registrars and the moderators and the checkers and whoever else is involved with that are going to be here before 6 a.m. and they're going to be here after 8 p.m. It's a long day for those people. and they get paid for all that time. So you could potentially be looking at 16 or 18 hours of coverage for the referendum, besides the mailing, besides the posting in the newspaper, besides paying them. So I can only imagine what that bill is going to cost to have a referendum when we could have been voting tonight. Moderator, we have a question in the back there.
I'm watching the questions.
Okay, okay, hold on one second, Catherine. So I understand the frustration. I understand. Bottom line is, like I said at the other petition meeting, when the question was brought up about moving the process forward, I got up and I said, we needed a director, we need to move forward. Bottom line. I'm going to say it again. We need a program, we need to vote yes, and we need to move on because this crazy needs to stop. Figure it out, tell your friends, tell your family. I was at church soliciting yes votes on Sunday because I am tired of the crazy. I'm tired that I'm outnumbered and I just want to move things forward. We need to move on. We need a program. Our kids need a program. Parents need the service. I am done. I have been beat up every which way of Sunday between everybody. We need to move on. Vote yes, get your friends to vote yes. Forget about what's in the question. You know what the basic premise is of the question. Vote yes, and let's move on.
I have.
Oh, no, I have it, Steve, right here.
You did point to him prior.
Yes, I did. Okay.
He's waiting.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. I just want to make sure. Now, the woman in the scarf and back, did you have your hand up earlier as well, or am I mistaken? I know Catherine did, and then I saw you. Yes.
So Gary McNamara, 287 Bear Hill Road. Sean, I agree with you. First of all, to the commission, you did a really good job at a time when we all need it, and you showed what we were all looking for. So this is probably one of the town's most important meetings we've had in a long time. And you also have vision because you said, future. So you're thinking about finances. So that's what we need in that park and rec. But we can't continue to repeat and go back to some of the silliness that we think we're doing. Because the question is a loaded question. Because unless you're here, to your point, Sean, or unless you're talking to somebody, and it's hard to get to people in mailings and whatever else, unless you're here, you still don't have confidence. And to say, should the town run a park and rec, an unlicensed and basically a horrible rec thing, well, who in their right mind is going to say yes with the experiences they had? And so I get a really concerned that we go through a lot of these town meetings where people are here and we vote. We vote on the silliest things in the world. You have to be here to vote. But for whatever reason, the people that aren't here, that haven't heard the confidence that you've all instilled in it, and I'm not going to be part of it. My kids aren't going to be part of it. I just think we're flawed in this process to move forward with this, because I think we should move forward with it, with that confidence and our new park and rec director. But I just think the question has made things a little bit more complicated for all of us. We were here a few minutes ago going to leave. Remember, this is the quickest meeting in the world until we all started saying, wait a minute. We got to stop that, because I just think the question is going to hurt us in the long run.
Catherine, in the back. And then I have this woman here.
I'm tab 2 quick points from the presentation, and I did.
Name and address.
Catherine Sylvester, Old Amity Road. I have a question from the presentation. My understanding was that we are eventually moving toward licensure. Is that not accurate? Regardless of the vote, that we are heading
Park
toward
and Rec is
licensure.
nodding,
Okay.
yes.
So
Park
then
and
what
Rec is
the
nodding.
vice chairman said isn't completely accurate, because we're moving toward licensure come hell or high water, right? Am I correct in that understanding, or did I misunderstand that? Well, it's a good illustrative phrase, and I use good illustrative language, so excuse me. So my other question.
Right. For
So
those
this
who
gets
cannot
voted
hear,
down.
she's
We're
saying
gonna
that
move
Park and Rec will continue to pursue licensure because she doesn't have a microphone. I just want to
Okay.
make sure everyone can hear it.
All right, so my understanding was correct then. We are moving toward licensure no matter what. Okay.
Regardless of the outcome is
Okay.
what she said.
My other concern is, and I was not going to bring this up tonight, and I was going to save it for another meeting. At our last town meeting, it was 3 days after my sister died. Okay. So I was not in a great frame of mind. I left town for 2 weeks afterwards. I received no less than 30 voter intimidation complaints. And that was with me not being around. That was with me being down in North Carolina. That meeting was a problem. Jan and I have one more year to go in our term. And we have an obligation to make sure our voters are not intimidated. Anyone who disbelieves me on that front, watch the video from that meeting. I started to watch it again today because I got another complaint from a different person. It made me sick. We can't do that to ourselves anymore. We can't do that as a town. We had people call names. We had people shout it out. If you don't believe me, watch the video.
This woman here. Again, name and address, please.
Amy Gallagher, Conway, 938 Litchfield Turnpike. I agree with Sean. Is there something you guys can mail out separately, or is that a cost to the town? With all of this information?
The town is restricted.
Well, yeah, no, I know that. I'm just wondering for informational purposes.
The town is restricted from balloteering. Okay, the town cannot campaign. It can only promote an option. So it's on, private citizens may pamphleteer and campaign all they want. The town cannot expend money to sway a vote in the town.
So then how does everybody get this information?
So again, there's a process. There's a statutory process that must be followed in order to send out explanatory text. That was discussed at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, which was Tuesday night. And the decision of the Board of Selectmen was not to authorize the town clerk to send out explanatory text. So therefore, we do not have the authority to send out explanatory text. I understand, I totally understand. And if I can make a legal distinction between providing a summary of tonight's meeting that is distinct from explanatory text to get to your wish, I will try to do that between now and Monday morning. But again, it may be a distinction that I can't reach because of the legalities. I don't have the authority to send out explanatory text, which would answer the request. And the Park and Rec Commission does not have the independent authority to do that.
So then the only other thing I would have to say is I think that it's a shame that a petition was formed with a certain question and the way it's worded now is different. It's a completely different question with much more severe consequence from the original question.
Point noted. I've got, you've spoken already, so you.
Donna Shea, 48 Deerfield Lane. You know, at the elections, regular elections, the Republicans and Democrats set up out in the parking lot 75 feet away. Would the Parks and Rec Commission be able to be out there with information that day of the, sorry.
I'll take a personal day.
Sorry, I know, but between all of you, maybe you could split it up or get volunteers to help you.
That's a great idea, actually, yeah. All right, now we have someone over here. Jamie again. I'm sorry? I didn't hear.
It's okay. I'm already over here. You go and then I'll hit us.
Sure. Hi, Jamie Sterling, 20 Miller Road. I'm a believer in democracy and resident education, regardless of which side of the issue you're on. And I just want to share that the town can't do it because of the statutes in terms of their text is limited by statute. But it costs about $1,200 or $1,300 to send a letter to every address, a 2-page letter to every address in town. And if you get 12 people to kick in $100, you could get a letter out. If you get it to the printer by Friday, they'd have it there. I mean, so if you want to send a letter to everyone in town, kick in private money and do the job. That's what it takes.
Mr. Sterling. Yeah, I just because I'm dealing with this issue up in Southington, if anyone decides to send out a townwide mailing to take a position, make sure that your mailing complies with the law, and there has to be a disclosure on it of paid for by whomever. because if you send out such a mailer and it's not properly attributed as required by the law, you're going to have some trouble. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I'm dealing with in another town. So good idea, but just make sure you comply with the law. It's under Title IX. If anyone plans on doing it, again, I don't represent individuals, I represent the town, but send me an email and I'll be happy to direct you to the right statute.
And I think the SEEC website under the Secretary of State has guidelines for all political mailings. You have to note who funded it and who the treasurer of that organization is. If it's privately funded, it has to be said privately funded by this person. All right. We have someone over here and I see you now too.
Hi, Rose Monaco, 27 Clay Road. I'm for what's happening here because I do know the person who would be handling this, and I'm very pleased with that. My only thing is, who are they going to be reporting to? I do not want to have anything happen like it has happened because we never got any answers. And I'm going to continue to fight for that because to me, it's the biggest shame that has ever happened in this town. That's what I have to say. But I do appreciate these people who are coming in. And I really want to know who they will be reporting to and who will have the final say. I don't want anything to be going sideward.
Your presentation was unclear on who would be reported to whom it would be reported. It was, you said HR or selectmen or something.
I said that, but right now everybody reports.
So, all right.
Right now, how job descriptions are written, everybody reports to the first selectman. Everybody here. If you're at will, you're the first selectman.
Hi, Nicole Wetmore, 40 Woods Road. I just had a question as to why is this required for a ballot when people aren't attending the meeting? Like, people have to come in that are in town that don't have kids that go to the Park and Rec program. That doesn't affect their life in that way. But they're not at the meeting, they're not voting in person, they're not getting the information, they're not getting clarification. Like Sean was saying, how is that going to be fair in terms of knowing exactly what they're voting on when we all here are all confused about it and we're trying to clarify it for everybody else?
That would be a question for the Board of Selectmen because they made the decision.
As I noted earlier, I voted to keep the vote tonight.
Yes.
Okay. And I was outvoted to take the vote, take the question off the call and send it to referendum.
So this is all because you got outnumbered by two other people so that this whole thing happened.
It's a board of three, so it two.
So I'm sorry, I mean,
I know, that's okay. 2-1, I was outvoted to not go to referendum. So
okay, I'm just
voted.
I'm just a concerned parent that needs after
Understood.
school. And I think the Board of Commission is doing an excellent job, and that presentation was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I just hope everything goes in the right direction.
And yes,
And it's a special circumstance and I didn't see any other hands up anyway. So
Thank you. Jen Galick, 123 Bethmore Road. So just to answer a couple of things that have come up. So yes, from an HR perspective, the director does report to the first select person. But with Hoops, one of our policies was kind of like a chain of command for complaints, issues, concerns that arose. And so that structure for Hoops was to first have conversation with the kind of Hoops coordinator, and then to go to the Park and Rec Commission with myself being the point person as chair. So I would assume that we would create a similar policy for issues and concerns related to any other programming where they would first speak with the director about the question or concern, and that if they didn't get a satisfactory kind of resolution, that then they would go to the commission, and that ultimately, yes, it would go up the ladder, but that we would have very, very careful oversight of those things and kind of have an established chain of command. And then someone else, I actually might have also been you, kind of talked about how we get this information out and all of the people that it's affecting that aren't here or maybe aren't even a Park and Rec family yet, because I know I heard from one parent that her child hasn't even started kindergarten yet, but next year will be. And she was like, hey, I need care. And I didn't even know that this was a thing. Maybe you guys over there, okay, welcome to the town. It gets better, I swear. But I do want to be clear that there are some on the Board of Selectmen who don't think that this issue affects a large enough majority of people in town. It has been publicly stated that it only affects about 100 families or 100 kids, so it's really not such a big deal. But our position is that, right, every family that it affects is a big deal and every child that it affects is a big deal. And if we can do it, I'm gonna make you guys follow me around. And if we can do it at no additional cost to the town outside the director, then we should be doing it. We should be doing it well, but we should be doing it. And also, I just think it's important to remember that our vision is that, yes, we run high quality childcare programming, but that we also run other programming. Park and Rec was allowed to become a childcare only entity, but there are lots of other things that a Park and Rec director who is qualified and enthusiastic can and will do. Many years ago, believe it or not, I actually took a couple Zumba classes right here in this gym, but then all those things stopped being offered, right? So Nicole has a whole host of things that she wants to bring to us as a community. And then just one other thing, we have put together this budget and are looking to offer programming from our youngest towns member to our oldest. There's another social services department in town that has 2 full-time staff members for a very, very small percentage of our population that accesses those services. And we continue to fund those and support those. And I think that we need to make sure that we're doing the same for the Park and Rec department and all of the things that it can bring to our town.
So I have 2 hands up, both of whom spoken already. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken who would like to speak? Over here first, and then I've got you 2. I will just make one comment as a moderator. For those who are new in town, actually, this is as good as it gets in Bethany. This is not a bad thing. The back and forth, the discussion, that's what is really great about this. These discussions are, this town, this is the legislative body of the town. This town allows every single resident an opinion and a chance to influence the policy of the town. That's what makes this town great. That's what makes these things great. So yeah, they can get a little difficult to sit through. And sometimes you really wish you'd brought provisions. But in general, I think this is what makes this town great. Anyway, go on. Sorry, pontificating.
Okay, hi. Amy Listinsky, 30 Mesa Drive. I'm sure most of you know who I am by now. If you don't, ask the person sitting next to you, they'll tell you who I am. I spoke up in July. There's a difference between moving on and moving forward. I just want to make a point. I do want this town to move forward. I am behind Park and Rec hiring this director. I am behind me, the person that brought this up, and I'm still fighting in court. I will never move on, but I want the town to move forward because the town deserves better. I've had conversation with our Park and Rec chair because lots of information was coming to me from people about this petition that was conflicting. I went right to the source. She explained it. And I agree. I want the town to have a before and after care program. I want there to be summer camp. The families need this. I think it's the right thing to do. And yes, I don't agree that their petition question was changed. I don't think that's right. This has gotten way bigger than, at least this portion's gotten way bigger than I think anybody wanted it to be. But the director has qualifications. I'm thankful for the presentation. I have not gone to all the commission meetings or read them all. So that gives a lot of information that I personally did not have. We need this. You know, a lot of us in different ways. Obviously, I'm hurting differently than maybe you're hurting or somebody else is hurting. Maybe what happened doesn't affect somebody and they don't care, and that's their personal prerogative. But we somehow have to get out of this hole and find a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think this is one way to make this happen. You know, I had stated way back at a meeting that my personal opinion was shut down Park and Rec after last year's summer camp. Tell parents in July that you got to figure it out come September for before and after care and start from the ground up. It's kind of what happened. I mean, the person that was put in charge quit abruptly for his own reasons. And Jen Cafasso was super instrumental in getting the JCC in here to help. Kay Bird, our superintendent, was helpful to do something for the before. So in essence, what I wanted happened. I didn't like personally how hoops started, but it got better and policies and procedures came in place and it was successful. And my kids don't participate, but kids did and they loved it. We need to somehow move forward. I know people are probably sitting here looking at me going, how can you say that? Well, at some point, I'm not putting my anger aside. I'm still more angry than you can ever imagine, and that will never change. And I did speak nicely to Paula last time because I needed chairs in the other room. I am human. I don't agree at January 29th. There was screaming back and forth. And to be honest, I had planned tonight that if someone yelled at somebody, I was going to stand up and be like, be respectful. We don't have to all agree. So I'm thankful that nobody yelled at anybody. But I really hope this does move forward. I think the referendum, I would have rather voted tonight, just put my hand up in the air. But it didn't go that way. We're a democracy. It didn't go that way. I hope that this will happen. Let Nicole, our new director, get in, work with this commission. Let's get the ball rolling. They're saying they're going to work on licensing and checking off the boxes. At some point, we have to put faith in people that they're going to do what they say they're going to do and hold them accountable for it. The town has lacked that, but we've got to somehow come out of this hole and move forward. So just wanted to share that.
Over here, this gentleman again. And then I have you, don't worry.
Alex Hutchinson, 76 Luke Hill Road. Additionally, I want to point out to the Board of Selectmen who do not think 100 children or 100 families affected, there are grandparents affected as well who are residents of the town. So keep that in mind, please.
Okay.
Catherine Sylvester, Old Amity Road. Ben, I actually have a question for you. And no, hell froze over, I guess, right? So can you tell me what the role is of Parks and Rec? Is that an advisory board? Okay.
Vin, I'm going to ask you to use a mic only because they're recording it.
Right. I needed my ice, melted ice.
Sorry.
That's it. In this instance, it's advisory. The Board of Selectmen makes the decisions with the recommendations from the Park and Rec.
So do advisory boards have the ability to make decisions about employees or make employment decisions?
Well, again, you're asking in the general or specific?
I'm asking you generally, would an advisory board appointed by the Board of Selectmen have the right to make employment decisions? Disciplinary, hiring,
in this town is done through the Board of Selectmen it would be through the Board of Selectmen.
Have you reviewed the chain of command that they just talked about if there was a complaint?
I'm sorry.
Have you reviewed the chain of command that was just brought up if there was a complaint with Parks and Rec? One of my concerns with Parks and Rec is that we had no mechanism for complaints. And based on my experiences with some of the discussion in this, I would not be comfortable raising a complaint with this Parks and Rec Commission. And I think there's some misunderstanding about what their role actually is in the town. And my concern is that they would feel that they have the ability to make an employment decision or make a disciplinary decision that's properly left with the Board of Selectmen. And I'm afraid of the liability. We would get sued. You know that.
Well, again, I've been working closely with this commission and I don't share your concerns. I appreciate your concerns, but I don't share your concerns. This Park and Rec Commission is well-formed, well-informed, and well-intentioned. And they know their role and they know who ultimately they make recommendations to. And that process, as long as I'm the town attorney, will be followed because most of what they do is they come to me and ask me for my input. And so, again, I appreciate the concern, but I don't think it's well placed here.
I will ask, I don't have any other speakers in the queue. Does anyone else want to talk or make a comment or ask a question? All right, then I want to thank you all for your time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Yes, a motion to adjourn to referendum because that's the motion that's necessary so we can move this forward. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, nay.
Okay, just a couple of quick reminders. The public hearing for the budget is Thursday, April 3rd, 7 o'clock here. Because Sharon had said the day before that would be a Sunday from the referendum. I don't think you want to be here on a Sunday. And the referendum, again, is Monday, April 7th, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm going to say it again, vote yes.
All right, so.
Thank you, Steve, for being
No problem.
moderator. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you,
So that
everyone,
have
for
your
coming
marching
out.
orders, people. April 7th is the referendum. For those who are interested, April 3rd is the Board of Finance public meeting. No, I didn't take it. And I didn't think you, yeah.